Hi everyone, this is Matt Martin from Arizona State University. So I'm grateful for the chance that I have to talk to you today, even though I can't be there in person in Toronto. I'm sure that Lenny is doing a great job with his presentation. So my part of the presentation is to talk about burnout and resiliency. So most of you probably know that physician burnout is an issue in the United States of America. Here's an example of what burnout can look like for an everyday family physician. Todd, a 43-year-old family physician in Cheyenne, Wyoming, is the type of physician he never planned on becoming. Impatient, sarcastic, and occasionally dismissive of his assistants. In the break room, he sometimes makes caustic jokes about his patients. He rarely takes vacation, but rarely feels happy either. At home, he seldom expresses anything positive about his work to his family. "My work drains me," he says, "and honestly, I sometimes don't care what happens to my patients." Todd has thought about changing careers, and once at his lowest point, he even considered ending his life. So some of you may know physicians that feel this way, or you may have residents that have displayed similar symptoms. There's a lot of evidence to support this growing recognition that we have a problem here in the U.S. There's data that says that half of all physicians experience burnout. And these symptoms can include things like emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, cognitive weariness, fatigue, disengagement, and it can have a lot of impact on not only their professional work but also their personal lives. What's interesting though is that even though a lot of attention has been put on the physician themselves, it seems that most of the problem is driven by the environment, what is happening at that particular organization. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of research on what interventions work best for alleviating burnout. I want to talk specifically though about resiliency, and the reason for that is because I think it's helpful to talk about, to have an asset or a strength-based viewpoint as opposed to having a deficit-based viewpoint. So even though we're talking about burnout, the main thing we want to discuss is resiliency here. We came up with a four-step model for developing resiliency, and hopefully this is something that can be useful in your own life as well as a strategy that you can teach to your residents. So it includes four steps. First, to evaluate your own stress level, then develop the ability to recognize stress using mindfulness. Step 3, identify changes at work, and then 4, incorporate activities into your life that build resiliency. So the first step, identifying your own stress level, is pretty much what we do for any problem. We have to better understand it. And there are some good tools out there. One of them is the Maslow Burnout Inventory. This is something that you can get online. However, there is a cost to it. You can do it for your entire organization, or you can get one just for yourself. But it includes items like this. I deal very effectively with the problems of my patients. I feel I treat some patients as if they were impersonal objects. Once you complete this inventory, you get a score and then an interpretation of what that score can mean. So this is important for just gauging what your current level of burnout or stress is. The second step is to develop the ability to recognize stress on a daily basis. And that's really done through mindfulness. You know, sometimes when we hear of mindfulness, it can conjure up other kinds of thoughts. Maybe you think of someone sitting on top of a mountain with their eyes closed. But mindfulness is really about the ability to pay attention to what's going on under your skin, what's going on inside of you. And there are lots of ways to do it. You can do it by just having brief meditation at the beginning of clinic in the morning or the afternoon. You can turn off the radio on your way home from work while driving. You can have controlled breathing right before you're about to walk into the exam room. You can pay attention to your feet when you're sitting or standing. And you can also just identify your emotional state at any time. But this ability to pay attention on purpose is a wonderful skill and really does a lot towards building resiliency. Number 3 is to identify changes at work. Like I mentioned before, this is one of the biggest drivers of burnout is the kind of environment that we work in. First, you should identify the changes within your control. Second, talk to people that make decisions, executive leaders, administrators. And this can include things like asking for a reduction in work hours or certain responsibilities. Perhaps you have a lot of administration and you want to cut back on it. Or perhaps you have residents that are not making good use of their time in the office, whether it has to do with how they're scheduling or planning their visits or how they're documenting. Lenny will talk more about that in just a few minutes. Finally, the fourth step of this model is to incorporate resiliency into your life. So this can include mindfulness, like I mentioned before, but it should also probably include other strategies as well, like stress management, small group discussions, self-compassion, gratitude journals, regular activity, nutritious eating, restful sleep. A lot of these things we already know about and we hear on a regular basis, but it's helpful to think about these strategies as contributors to your ongoing resiliency. Resiliency does take time to build, but it's kind of like having a checking account or any kind of bank account where you deposit money over time into that account so that when the time comes that you need to make a major withdrawal, your check is not going to bounce. You're going to have the money that you need. And resiliency is the same idea. So now I'll turn the time over to Lenny. Thank you for watching.